So I wanted to go over some common myths and misconceptions that I've heard in my travels. And some of these will sound familiar, but I want you to listen carefully because during my presentation, I'm going to address all of these. So first, well, you know, teens would go to sleep earlier if their parents just set limits and made them do it, right? It's just bad parenting. So, what happens in adolescence? All adolescents experience a shift in circadian rhythms that coincide with older age and also with pubertal changes. This results in a biologically based shift or delay of up to several hours in both their natural fall asleep time and their morning wake time. On a practical level, this means that because of that forbidden zone, that surge in alertness just before you're ready to fall asleep, it's almost impossible for the average adolescent to fall asleep much before 11 p.m. on a regular basis. Teens cannot force themselves, and their parents cannot make them fall asleep earlier. Some teens might need 9 hours of sleep, but mine does just fine with 6, just like I did when I was a teenager. So for optimal health, safety, and achievement, the average sleep the high school student needs is about 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, this is based on, there was just a recommendation which was released by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine for 13 to 18-year-olds to get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep per night. Now, this was based on a review of 864 scientific articles by a panel of 13 sleep experts who spent 10 months looking at this literature. So these are not numbers that are just pulled out of the air. Take the cell phones, TVs, laptops, tablets away, and kids will fall asleep. That's really the big problem here. Just before our bodies are ready to fall asleep at night, we have a burst of energy, which we refer to as the forbidden zone or the second wind phenomenon. And if you try to fall asleep during that forbidden zone, it's very difficult to do that. So keep that in mind. If school starts later, they'll just stay up later and they won't get any more sleep. If school lets out later, they'll have to cram in the same amount of stuff in even less time. So some of this is taken from a very recently published report, which was a review of 38 studies that examined the association between school start time, sleep, and behavioral health and academic outcomes among adolescents. So the first thing is bedtimes remain the same, or in some studies have actually shifted earlier. In a study that we conducted in an independent school, which had a half-hour delay in start time from 8 to 8:30, the students on average got 50 more minutes of sleep because their bedtimes on average also shifted 20 minutes earlier. Now, this was unexpected, and we don't know for sure why this happened, but we heard two things from students. One is, I felt so much better getting that extra half hour of sleep that I was motivated to go to bed earlier. And number two, I got my work done faster because I didn't keep falling asleep while I was doing my homework. So maybe what students take 5 hours to complete in terms of homework would only take 3 or 4 hours if they were well rested. Because human beings sacrifice efficiency for accuracy. when they're sleep deprived. They get the right answer, but it takes them a lot longer to get there. So when start times change, students obtain significantly more sleep, particularly that critical morning REM-dominant sleep. The later the start time, the greater the sleep amounts, but even a 30-minute delay can result in significant improvements, particularly if the endpoint is at 8:30 or later. And students report less daytime sleepiness, like doing homework. In terms of school performance, attendance goes up, tardiness rates go down, dropout rates decline, standardized test scores improved, grades improve. In a recent study of 6 schools, 5 of them showed a significant increase in grade point average before and after the start time change in core subjects like English, math, science, and social studies. And there's some evidence that disadvantaged students may benefit more from school start time change. Teens can just make up for sleep that they lost during the week by sleeping late on the weekends, or in some school districts, going to school later, 1 day a week. It's not even just the amount of sleep and when you sleep, it's how much variability there is night to night in your sleep that all matter. Is sleeping in on weekends adequate compensation for weekday sleep loss? No, because it doesn't improve your alertness Monday through Friday, and it doesn't reverse any performance impairments. And in fact, you could argue that it makes things even worse, because it further exacerbates this mismatch between the adolescent circadian clock and the environment. And they've actually done experiments in which they've shown that the melatonin secretion in the evening shifts even later when teens sleep in on weekends habitually. In addition, if you sleep until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, there's no way you're going to build up your sleep drive enough to be able to fall asleep at a reasonable hour come Sunday night. And this leads to a situation that we call social jet lag. Now, it takes about 1 day per time zone crossed to adjust to jet lag. So we have these kids who are essentially flying from Connecticut to LA and back every weekend. They're asking their bodies to shift 3 hours in one direction and then shift 3 hours in the other direction. And you know, it's always more difficult flying eastward because the human circadian clock is a little bit longer than 24 hours, and it's harder to make yourself fall asleep earlier. So it takes till Thursday or Friday to kind of adjust to this, and then the whole pattern starts all over again. So these kids are operating in pretty much of a permanent state of jet lag, which we know is associated with a lot of different kinds of impairments. Kids need to learn to get up early. That's life, right? You're going to have to do that for the rest of your life if you want to get a job, so you might as well start doing it now. And you know what? Whatever, they'll survive. They'll be okay. In terms of wake times, adolescents are also biologically programmed to wake up at around 8 a.m. or later. And early start times for school require teens to wake and function during what is for them that circadian nadir. So remember that typically occurs in adults between 3 and 5 a.m. Well, that gets shifted a little bit later. So we're asking students to wake up and function at a time when their brains are telling them loudly and clearly to be asleep. If that wasn't bad enough, early wake times selectively rob teens of a stage of sleep called REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep is concentrated in the latter third of the night, and REM sleep is absolutely fundamental to memory consolidation and learning, particularly of new information. So we're asking these kids to get up at the wrong time, when they haven't gotten enough sleep, and when they haven't gotten the stage of sleep that is most critical for their ability to learn in school. A triple whammy, if you will. In addition, the higher in grades you go, the less sleep you get. So by the time you're in 11th or 12th graders, you're probably getting less sleep than you ever will in your entire life, hopefully, but that may not always be the case. But when you think about it, not only are these kids being exposed to this really severe level of sleep loss, but it lasts for 4 to 7 years. So this is a natural experiment in which we have this cohort of students that are being exposed to a very important health detriment for a large chunk of their adolescence at a time when their physical growth and their brain growth is absolutely critical. So talk about a perfect storm.